Right, we go to this discussion now where there are growing calls to regulate digital gambling in South Africa. According to a report published by The Citizen, 1.1 trillion rand was spent by those that are hoping to benefit from online betting between 2023 and 2024. Toby Chance from the Democratic Alliance, he is a Member of Parliament, and Sibongile Simelane-Quntana, Executive Director at South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, join us for this conversation. Thank you for joining us. I certainly appreciate it. We'll start with Toby. You say this industry is not sufficiently regulated and legislation is just not up to par. Tell us why.
Yes, thanks, Audrey. So the 2004 National Gambling Act regulates gambling as it takes place in casinos. And the 2008 amendment to that act was supposed to regulate online, what was called then interactive gambling. But the act has not been implemented, nor have the regulations which accompany the act. So it's a huge gap legislative-wise. And obviously, since then, with the internet and other online channels proliferating, there's been a massive upsurge in online gambling. So there was a desperate need for it to be regulated. So my colleague, Dean McPherson, tabled the bill back in 2022, and I've taken it over because he is now, of course, the Minister of Public Works. So I'm the national spokesperson for DTIC, Trade, Industry and Competition, and we decided that this was an important area that needed regulation. And so here's the bill reintroduced into Parliament.
Yeah, just very quickly before we go to Sibongile, Toby, what amendments do you want to see happening on this bill? You are the sponsors as the Democratic Alliance.
Yeah.
Which part exactly are you hoping can be tweaked so that it can be fit for purpose?
Well, it's more than just tweaking, because the whole online gambling industry is not regulated at all. So the purpose of this bill is to regulate it, by which I mean make sure that both gamblers and the providing of gambling software and systems are brought within the legislative framework. So it protects all parties from being exploited, from being over-advertised, from tax revenues being foregone by the state, all the things that actually any industry needs to be regulated for. So it's not even tweaking, it's much more than tweaking, it's actually starting from scratch.
Yeah. Let's hear from Sibongile, if you can join in the conversation. How common has online gambling been? How many cases are you seeing as the Responsible Gambling Foundation, especially with people that are exclusively addicted to gambling online?
Look, we've seen, thanks Audrey for having us. First of all, we've seen a significant increase with especially sports betting, because currently, in terms of the current legislation, what is regulated is actually betting, that is betting on any device. But now, as Toby is saying, that comes with having access to internet and certain devices which are not specified in the current legislation. And that opens up a number of problems with minors have to have access to internet gambling without anyone being able to supervise, how much time they are spending. Even individuals, adults that are actually playing, they are actually easily accessing betting online. But also what comes as a problem is that the accessibility is then extended for longer waited periods. And also we have a problem with the self-exclusions. Currently, the process is actually manual. We are hoping that the new bill will actually address the issue of self-exclusion beyond just us having a self-exclusion database, but being able to automate the system so that we can encourage a lot of people to come in and ban themselves in terms of the act.
Yeah, but in terms of numbers, what are we looking at here? There seems to be an increase when it comes to online betting, as you've already alluded to, that there's very little that one can do in terms of controlling people or kind of limiting how much time people can spend on their own personal phones when it comes to betting. Just how bad is it?
Okay, first of all, let me address that you can regulate how much people spend. Countries like Australia and Canada have actually put in means where pop-up messages will actually come in and inform the player that you've spent too much time, gambling, or actually regulating how much time a person can spend. If you spend more than 5 hours, you literally need to shut down, or that message gives you time to actually shut down and take breaks in between the gambling. So other countries have done that successfully, and I believe that in South Africa we can actually do that as well. Coming to the specific numbers, if we look at our referrals, people that came in and said that they're addicted to gambling in general, we saw 1,481 people. Fast forward to currently 2024, 2023, 2024, we've actually treated 1,984 individuals, and about 68% of those people are addicted to online sports betting.
Yeah. Let's hear from Toby if there's an understanding if government is able at all to collect any kind of tax from these online gambling platforms. I understand it's a multi-billion rand sector that could really generate some kind of substantive revenue.
Well, just to give the numbers, 10 years ago, casinos represented 85% of the industry. Now they represent less than 30%. And betting, which includes online betting, is 60%. So just those numbers alone suggest that there needs to be action taken. And yeah, the issue of addiction is taken seriously in the bill. It's important that all gambling operators provide information on counselors and education facilities available in the jurisdictions in which they operate, so that if people feel that they are susceptible to addictions, and they can find advice. There's also restrictions on advertising, misleading advertising. There's also restrictions on gambling sites that don't pay you out. So if you do win something and you don't actually get the money, the operator can have their license removed. So all these things are actually there to make sure that the operations are regulated properly. And that's why we've actually put out a call for comments, which is important because we may have elements that we've missed out on in the bill. Comments are still able to be submitted before the end of the week. And then what will happen is that the bill will be taken into committee and we'll have a thorough discussion around the issues.
Yeah, and I suppose you don't expect that to happen this year, given that we're getting into the end of the year, perhaps in the coming year in 2025. Just how soon do you think this must be done? And do you think the president will prioritize it? What chances do you think this bill will have?
Well, we have to also realize that the current amendment bill has been sent to the mediation committee because it was rejected by the National Council of Provinces. This is what we call a Section 76 bill. In other words, because it affects the provinces, it has to go through the National Council of Provinces, which rejected the bill. So we have these two parallel bills. That my bill is much more up to date and deals with the details of online gambling. The other bill doesn't. So we're going to have to figure out in the committee how to finesse these two bills. And that's going to be something which the committee, which I sit on, will have to consider in the next quarter, which will hopefully be the first quarter of next year. Once we've made that decision, we can then choose which route to go, and then eventually it has to go back to the National Assembly, and then again into the National. It's a long process. I can't imagine this being completed by the end of next year at the earliest.
Yeah. Sibongile, what role do you see your organization playing in all of this as the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation?
We are actually making submissions, and we are about to meet the deadline. And some of the areas that the bill doesn't touch on, we've actually made some submissions, especially around the protection, player protection, because we feel that in any legislation, player protection must actually come in very strongly. We are also making a submission that, allowing gambling for anyone that is from age of 18, we need to actually change that and start from the age of 20, because we believe that at the age of 18, some people are still actually school going. And in terms of maturity and understanding, the extent of gambling addiction, they are not yet matured enough to be able to make those decisions. So we are recommending that any legal age of starting to gamble should be from the age of 20 instead of 18, as the current bill is actually recommending and the current legislation.
Yeah, I have to thank both of you for giving us your time this afternoon. Thank you so much. Toby Chance from the Democratic Alliance as a Member of Parliament, and Sibongile Simelane-Quntana, Executive Director at South African Responsible Gambling Foundation. We'll have to leave it there for now.